Hello, thanks for coming to walk with me today. I am walking at 1.7 miles per hour if you want to keep up with my pace. And don't forget to start your exercise device if you like to track. Today I want to talk to you about a documentary I just finished on Max called The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. There is a part 1 to this video if you want to check it out. Part 2 is going to be about season 2, although I did mention some parts of season 2 in the last video because I wanted to put in some things Natalia expressed, because in season 1, you don't hear Natalia's point of view pretty much at all. I mean, there is a court case at the end and you do see her there like grown up, but she doesn't like sit down and give you an interview like she does in season 2, because in season 2 it's pretty much her side of the story, and I'm so happy they did this because it's really easy to believe something when you don't have all the information. I mentioned in part 1 of this video that I was starting to feel bad for Michael, and even in the beginning I kind of could see how they could believe certain things that don't seem to be true. So it's nice to have all the pieces of the puzzle, or maybe probably honestly still don't have them all. There's probably still some truths and some lies that the world will never know. But I'm really happy that Natalia had the chance to tell like her side of the story. So in season 2, you are with Natalia and you're with her and the family that she's been living with. I think she's been living with them for around 10 years at this point. And she's not adopted by them, but it's the family that the last apartment, or I think she was actually more, it was a house that the original adoptive parents had put her in from the last episode here. They found her, they're like, something's not right, and basically they took her in and started taking care of her because I don't know if they were fostering or adopting or they had their own kids, but they had a handful of kids living with them already. So I guess this was something that was part of their life's mission and wanted to do, at least that's how it's presented. So some of the interview you get with her takes place like in her room, at her home with them, and some's in other places, but they talk about the trial from season 1 just a little bit. Again, I don't want to mention the outcome of that because you might want to watch it and find out for yourself what happens, and so I won't say much, but they didn't really talk much about it either. But she does start revealing what happened to her and her story, and there is a point where she actually also sits down with her adoptive dad, Michael. So she details what she remembers in her earlier years, a little bit about being in the orphanage in the Ukraine, and she mentions that wasn't a very good experience. Apparently they would like dress up, I say they, like I guess the workers, like if the kids didn't want to go to bed, they would like put on some like mask and scary stuff and go around like peeking in the rooms, and it like really scared the children. So at this time she would have been probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5, 3, 4, maybe 3, 4, 5, pretty young. But she doesn't have a lot of memories there, but she does remember that. That's pretty terrifying. I probably remember that too. And she also remembers some situation with doctors on staff or some random guy who like covered her face with something. And there is a picture that the producers, the people working on this show, found of her with a man, and he's like got his arms on her on a table. It's kind of weird. Not really sure what that's about, and they didn't really ever say. But she remembers meeting a few families along the way. The one I mentioned before, the ones who had a daughter and she stayed with for a while. She has really fond memories of that time and was really happy there, and probably wishes that worked out too. She does mention her birth mom and how she, Natalia, doesn't really want to like open that up and have a relationship. At least that's how she feels now. I mean, she's pretty young. She's like 20, 21 or something, so she might change her mind on that, or maybe she won't. That's her choice. But I'm not sure how much, I mean, maybe she watched the documentary and saw like her mom talk about it, because I'm not sure how much she knows about why she was in the orphanage. So maybe if she had a little more context about kind of her mom being convinced to do that, maybe she would have a different opinion about meeting her mom, but I don't know, maybe not. But she talks about her experience with the family she lives with now, and how she's never, like, she just met them and that's her mom and dad to her. And she felt very accepted, very loved, and very taken care of, like for the first time really in her life. So that was a positive for sure. And then eventually she does begin detailing her experience living with her last adoptive family, Christine and Michael and the boys. And she remembers the Disneyland or Disney World, again, I don't remember. One of the Disneys. She remembers going with them there. And she said while they were there that she saw like the previous family she lived with, and she mentioned like, oh, there's my mom or something like that. And because, you know, she's little, that's like conditioned in her mind, like, oh, I was living with these people, they were taking care of me, that's my mom. And according to Natalia, Christine was like, she's not your mom, I'm your mom now. So that was probably a red flag if she knew what a red flag was. But she also recalls like going back to the hotel and getting her bath. But she says she doesn't remember Michael coming in and them having a big old discussion about her having any pubic hair. However, when you're 6, you don't remember everything, and maybe to her that wouldn't be, like, she probably didn't know what that was, right? So I don't know. So to her, things are still mostly okay. She remembers that beginning time being like great. She mentions like going to, like they went home to their house, and she had this room, and it was pink, and she was just like really happy. Like she finally felt like she had a place. But then of course over time, that's when things started to unravel. It's like seeing the pubic hair, if that was there or not, or if it was based on a rare disease or not, whatever reason, whether it was there or not, the story begins to be spun like that she's not who she says she is. And it's like the mom, Christine, never could come back off of that, could never accept that that wasn't true, or she just really believed it, or she just wanted a reason to not like this girl. I don't know. So Natalia starts recalling all the issues. She said she was in school and she had friends at school and she loved school, but then it wasn't long until the mom pulled her out and started homeschooling her. And Christine's reason for pulling her out of school was she was saying she got calls every day from the teacher, from the school, saying that Natalia was like in a wheelchair and like running over people or hurting people at school, all these kinds of things. But the teacher, and even I believe the principal, like, come on for a hot minute, like you don't see them, you hear their voice. And they were like, no, that's not true. Like, Natalia was a delight. We liked her. She didn't cause any issues. Like, she was fine. So clearly something's not adding up there. But once Natalia had to stay at home, I think is when her life probably started getting like not in a good place. Like she would stand on the wall. She said she'd have to stand there for hours. Her feet, her body would hurt, and that Christine never seemed to care. She got sprayed with mace or pepper spray in the face twice and was not allowed to rinse it out, which that's just absolutely horrible. Like, imagine being a kid and getting sprayed in the face and you can't even understand why this is happening to you, and someone who's supposed to take care of you is doing that to you, and then you're not even allowed to find a way to relieve your pain. Like, that's not okay for anybody. That's crazy. So there's that. Michael, I don't remember, he might have done it actually in season 1 towards the end, but also they talk about it again in season 2, is like how Christine would like beat Natalia, like punching, elbowing, just like wailing on her, and like for no reason, just wanting her to tell the truth about who she was, which Natalia was already doing. So that's horrible. And Natalia recalls that Christine had the boys, the 3 sons, hit her with belts as well, hit her, drop her, like they were just all abusing her. There's even a moment, actually this is also from season 1, I watched them back to back, so some things might bleed into the others, but the oldest son thought he was off mic because he was interviewing and he like left the space that he still had the mic on. And he was talking to his dad about kicking her down the stairs. So, but they didn't want to talk about it on camera. So they're still being very selective with what truth, like they're saying they want to tell the truth, but they're still being selective about which truth to tell. But it's pretty, like the dad even admits that there was abuse going on in the household, and he says he wasn't involved with it, but involved with like the actual physical part, but he was letting it happen. He wasn't stopping it. He wasn't seeking help. And he's saying that that's because he was being like manipulative, and that he was basically saying that they had the same monster. And he actually doesn't even get to see his 2 younger kids unless something has changed since the documentary aired. But apparently Christine would withhold like intimate things from him, and then she would offer them back up to kind of get what she wanted. So as they're going through the divorce, she used that to her advantage and basically got him to not contest like what she wanted for custody. And she ended up with custody, I guess, of all the children, but then at some point the oldest came and lived with him, you know, when he was old enough to make that decision. But there comes a point after Natalia's kind of talked about all the abuse that she's went through. She talks about living in the apartment and not being able to reach stuff, not having food, not feeling safe, of course. She also mentions like a lot of the things that people in those apartment interviews said, like that's not how she remembers it, or it didn't happen that way, or it was like a situation that it wasn't what it looked like. And I know about that, but it is interesting to me that all the neighbors were kind of feeling a way about her. But you know, people can convince people to feel any way if they believe something. So back to, she basically goes over a bunch of things that happened to her, and her and Michael actually end up sitting down twice to have a conversation. The first time they sit down, like at a mutual, or not a mutual, but at a location that it's not anybody's house, just like a location. And her guardian, because she's not adopted or anything at this point, it's her guardian that she's been living with, he comes with her, and Michael's lawyer comes with him. And they were not even that far into the interview, and I guess Michael was using some cuss words, and Natalia now seems to be very spiritual, and her guardian's like a bishop, so they're like a spiritual family, and so they asked him not to use cuss words, and he got really mad about that. Like, Michael is really triggered, I guess we'll say, by a lot of things, and he like loses it, which makes, and you see it several times, which makes me think like you've been through a lot of stuff, or you're probably doing more stuff in the house than you claim to be, because you're just like losing it all the time. I don't know. But they part ways, and Natalia's upset about this, and Michael probably is upset about it too, because they both want some like closure and to talk things out. They haven't seen each other in years. So I don't know how much time passes, but some time passes, and they sit down for an interview again, this time without the lawyer, without her guardian, and she's an adult at this point. And she gets to ask him a lot of questions that she wants answers to, and some he's willing to answer, some he is not, or he'll deflect and bring something else up. And he makes it a lot about him, it seems. Like he starts saying, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and we had the same monster. And I do get that, and I do believe that he was manipulative and abused mentally, psychologically, you know, in some way. But this was a child being physically and mentally, psychologically, all that, abused, like, you had the same monster, but y'all did not have the same experience. So I don't know. But their interview goes on for quite a while, and it seems like they both get to a place of closure. It ends with Natalia asking if she can like pray for Michael, and he says okay. So they like have a moment and they do that. And then he kind of just goes on his way. He seems like he feels good and he's happy about all this. And she goes back to her family, and it turns out that her family is going to adopt her, even though she's an adult. Like, she wants to belong, I'm sure. And I mean, she's been living with them for years. So they go through it, and she wants to have her name changed. She doesn't want the same last name as her previous adoptive family where things did not go well. So they go to the court, they get all that done. Everyone is so happy. And it's like rolling out, like season 2's a wrap. The last like 15 to 30 seconds is like a voiceover from the people who just adopted her. Basically, they start saying some stuff that they didn't say before. And I don't want to spoil that for you because it was just like a jaw-dropping moment, like, what? So you'll have to watch it to find out what they say. But the way they left it makes me feel like they could definitely have a season 3 of this if they wanted. And if not, I hope we get some more information about what's going to happen next with Natalia and her story. And I really just hope she can find like some peace, some happiness. Probably if she's not in therapy, probably needs to find a way to get some, because that's a lot to go through at any age, but especially a young age. And I'm sure that some support would be great for her. But thank you for walking with me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.